You're listening to the Urban Sports Scene and Bowie TV Baltimore Ravens pre-game show. I said process recap show. I said pre-game. You could tell you could tell I'm under the weather, dog. You can't even
A
hold
lot
you.
going on. A
You
lot.
could know I'm under the weather. You could tell I'm not even on my A game. I'm Wole and I'm joined by my co-host Ray and Bowie TV's Ravens beat reporter Carita Parks. First off, man, what's going on, Carita?
I'm just moving and grooving.
I know that's right.
Here for the
Moving
pregame.
and grooving.
What's going on, Ray?
All is well. I'm ready to get the inside scoop. You know what I'm saying? The Ravens don't lose these days, Carita. It wasn't supposed to happen like that, especially with Deshaun being out. I was shocked like everybody else. I ain't gonna hold you.
And shout out to you and DH, man. Y'all did a great job on the pregame.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a chance to look at a little bit of it when I was at church. I was like, okay. I was on my phone peeping.
Yeah,
I was like,
he held it down for you.
He did, man. I'm proud of that dude, man. I'm proud of that dude. But y'all did great. Y'all did great, man. Great insight. For the folks who are tuning in right now, if y'all want to go back look at the pregame, it's dope. I mean, pretty much, some of the questions and concerns were addressed during the pregame, so definitely check it out. But before we get into all, Ray mentioned like on Sunday, the Baltimore Ravens fell to the Cleveland Browns 29-24. And we're going to talk about a big trade that went down today too as well. But before we get into all that, let's get into the particulars. They subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and other podcast platforms. Just search The Urban Sports Scene. Make sure you subscribe to The Urban Sports Scene YouTube channel. Also, this Ravens recap is being streamed on Bowie TV YouTube channel as well. Subscribe there as well. Don't forget to tweet us at Urban Sports Scene. Hit us up on IG at Urban Sports Scene and TikTok at Urban Sports Scene. And also like our Urban Sports Scene's Facebook page. Dude, I'm going through it right now. Also join our Urban Sports Scene Facebook group. Search Urban Sports Scene, sports podcasters. I'm all off. Sports bloggers, sports podcasters, and sports debates. All right, let's get into it. So, Carita, I mentioned the big trade. I'm Ray. You go into it, bro, because I'm going through it.
Well, Carita, you already know sometimes the chatter around Lamar Jackson is Lamar does not have anybody to throw to. Zay Flowers, Hollywood Brown. Well, the Ravens made a trade with Carolina Panthers. 2025 fifth-round pick they gave to the Panthers for Diontae Johnson to give Lamar some additional help, even though Lamar is playing at an MVP level. What were your thoughts about this trade? Was it necessary? And what was your reaction when you heard the news go out?
So I figured Eric DeCosta is going to make some moves close to the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. Receiver wasn't necessarily the first move I thought he would make. But then when I hear the details of the trade, the Ravens gave up a 5th-round pick, got a 6th-round pick back. And based on where they were in the 5th round, they're only moving down maybe, I can't remember, it's like 15 to 20 spots. So not that far. And then the Panthers are paying some of Johnson's salary. So the Ravens will only owe him like let me get the about $625,000. Mm-hmm. So they got a steal. So I ain't even mad because this adds more depth to the wide receiver group. I mean, you have Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, but once you get further down the depth chart, you have Tylan Wallace, but they used him mostly as a returner. And then they do have Devontae Walker, but he hasn't played at all. He hasn't seen the field at all this year. So I think they're looking for some more veteran experience. And Nelson Aguilar, he was a very reliable target last year. This season, he hasn't been as reliable as he was last year. Mm-hmm. So I think that they are just looking for some depth, and Johnson adds to that. Also, Zay Flowers, he had an ankle. He was potentially questionable for the Browns game with an ankle injury. Okay. I was thinking like, that leaves Bateman and Aguilar, but really no one else. So I think you got to think about the big picture. If they go further along as they expect, they can't be short on the wide receiver side, because if anybody gets hurt, there's not a lot of depth there.
Carita, let's be real. This is not the sentiment amongst the players and probably not even the media. You can testify to that. But amongst the Ravens fans, a lot of them, it's about, can we beat the Chiefs? Does Diontae Johnson help us beat the Chiefs? And we got to get them this year. Mahomes is having a bad season. what are we going to do when it comes playoff time? I think we
Mahomes is
all
having a
expect them.
they undefeated. That is crazy. But I'm sorry, Ray.
Nah, you good. I'm just saying
thought.
exactly. But come playoff time is where I think Lamar is going to have to answer the questions to for the national media. Not for us. We know who Lamar is, but does this help that cause? Because that's the only goal is you got to get past that hump. It's like Jordan getting past the Pistons. You know what I'm saying? Type of thing. If you old enough to remember that, Carita, I'm saying like Lamar,
I am,
Lamar.
unfortunately.
you got to overcome that one team. It's always that team you got to beat. And for Lamar, we already know it's the Chiefs. For LeBron, it was the Celtics. You remember, everybody has that team. I'm hoping this is it, and adding wide receiver depth hopefully will be beneficial because people are banged up come playoff time.
Exactly. Well, to answer your question, I think it will help in the respect that if everyone's healthy, Diontae Johnson helps them spread the ball more, spread out the field. He's more of a threat, like an outside threat. If you look at, and Zay Flowers is a little bit, but he just gives them a little bit more versatility in the receiver room. Because if you really think about it, last year, it wasn't necessarily a lack of receivers as to why the Ravens didn't beat the Chiefs. They got away from their run game. They got away from what had been working for them the entire season. So I say Diontae Johnson can help because the more weapons Lamar has, and Lamar is having his best season, I think, as a passer, in my opinion. Excuse me. So adding another wide receiver for him can do nothing but help. And right now, I feel like Rashad Bateman is reliable. Zay Flowers is reliable, but they are both not reliable every week, if that makes sense.
No,
you need someone who is consistently reliable, and I'm going to guess that Diontae Johnson can do that for them.
What's up, Candy? Candy said the Ravens still are in the fight. They saw the Chiefs got DeAndre Hopkins, so somebody had to do something.
Hey, look at how
they couldn't afford DeAndre Hopkins. They couldn't afford some of the other wide receivers that did come out on the market. So Diontae Johnson's a good, they got a good deal.
No, I had a real good deal for Diontae Johnson. I mean, he hasn't had the success he wanted he had in Pittsburgh, but
with the Panthers,
situations are situations. But I'm curious, what does this mean? I mean, you and I, we've always talked about Rashad Bateman during our pregame recaps and whatnot. But you got Diontae Johnson, a guy that a lot of people thought in Pittsburgh had the potential to be number one. Now, obviously, like I mentioned in Carolina, it didn't surface the way it didn't come out the way he wanted to come out, but he has all that potential. What does it mean about Rashad Bateman, who's having a good year, but you talking about being consistent, had a rough outing against the Browns on Sunday. So what does that mean about him for his playing time? Like, what does having Johnson do to his playing time?
I don't know that I feel like it is going to change his playing time. If you look at this offense on any given week, one receiver can have 7 targets one game, and the next game they have 2 targets. I mean, that's kind of how it's been going because of the amount of weapons that they have. Honestly, I'm a little more concerned about if that is going to impact Nelson Aguilar's playing time.
Okay.
I'm just wondering. I mean, I think we have to see how it pans out, but I kind of can see potentially Nelson Aguilar having a smaller role in the offense now that they brought in Diontae Johnson. It's just hard for me to right now believe that Eric DeCosta is trying to move away from Bateman because he had one rough game, especially because for the most part, he's been on the upward trajectory, and he signed him to that extension. And he specifically said, I feel like it's only fair to give him an opportunity to show what we know he can do because they know he had been injured. So I don't really think that they would bail on him so soon after extending him.
I guess let me say it this way. Does he drop on the depth chart? Not he was wide receiver 2. Does he move to wide receiver 3 now?
To be determined. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's to be determined. I think if that happened,
Mm-hmm.
it's because in these next couple games, he's
Okay.
not as productive.
Got
But
you.
do I think that happens immediately? I don't think that happens immediately.
If he doesn't have that rough, we're talking about the game he had. He had a couple of drop passes in the Browns game. If he doesn't have that type of game, do you think they make this type of trade?
Yeah,
Talking
I
about
still
Bateman,
think
you
they
think they
would.
still make the trade regardless? Okay.
Yeah, I feel like this trade was more about depth than an
Okay.
indictment on somebody's playing.
Okay.
How someone has played thus far.
Yeah, because the only reason I ask this is because when you look for a trade, like you mentioned this earlier, and it's almost similar. I'm gonna use like to the Commanders, like you're trading for a wide receiver, but at the end of the day, like wide receiver may not be your biggest issue. Like it may be like we talk about this, the secondary, like
I
not
mean,
making a move in the secondary. Like the wide receivers you talked about are like these. Everybody's getting money. Like you talk about Bateman, Zay, the tight end. So it's not like when you look at the situation when you look at the Ravens, you're not saying wide receiver is an issue. You know what I mean? But I get it though. That is a bargain though.
I don't
Like,
think it was about wide receiver being an issue. I think it was about wide receiver being a thin position when it comes to depth.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I think Eric DeCosta is, if you can get a wide receiver that you feel will add to the team for what he got him for. And salary cap is an issue for the Ravens too. Then why not? Because that's probably the best receiver you're going to be able to get for what you can afford.
True.
So I mean, that's kind of how I see it. They've been kind of thin. I thought Devontae Walker would see the field a little bit, but he hasn't. So I just think that it was more about that being a thin position. And if you do get further along, I'm not going to say if, because the Ravens, I expect them to be in the postseason.
Of course, yeah.
You know, you can't be in a position where you're down a wide receiver if someone gets hurt.
Yeah. No, I mean,
even though he has his tight ends, I mean, I get it, but I think that also Eric DeCosta is trying to give Lamar as many weapons as he can, because that has been an issue over the years. Is Lamar doesn't have enough weapons.
Yeah, I just think Lamar to me is on a whole different level where he makes his weapons. I kind of feel like you're seeing already early in the season where like he got dudes and he is so improved as a passer, just like we talk about Pat Mahomes. You know, people give him the flowers, just like we talk about Pat Mahomes. Lamar makes life easy for his skill players. You know what I mean? Like, because he can stall time and get you extra time in the pocket. He can then now find like a Zay Flowers down the field, or he can find a Bateman down the field, or Nelson Aguilar down the field. Likely Mark Andrews, these guys, like he has so much. Even Justice Hill, like out the backfield, Lamar can do so many things just in the pocket, and even creating that it makes life easier for skill position players. So, but yeah, I'm with you.
One comment though. So I was thinking about the Browns game and how Lamar's pass wasn't 100% accurate, but I just felt like, I mean, if you think about even how they lost to the Chiefs, like Isaiah likely caught the ball, but he was out the back of the end zone. I think Zay Flowers looked like he tripped. I got to look at that again, but he looked like he tripped. I don't feel like they have, like, from a receiver standpoint, I don't feel like they have like a closer like they have with Derrick Henry. And I mean, I don't know if Diontae Johnson can add that, but I suspect he can. I feel like they need like that guy when the game is on the line.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, like, again, we mentioned because I think highly of Lamar. I think like you think of Lamar, like for real. Like I think of Lamar like Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes doesn't need like that closer anymore. Like he's at a point where his receiver his best receiver is tight end. You know what I mean? And I think Lamar's at that level too now, where he's just special. Some people need that number one, that thorough number one. Lamar's at a point where
I'm not saying he needs a thorough number one, but I am saying that I do think that he needs, and Mark Andrews is one of those guys. All his receivers he can depend on.
Yeah, definitely.
But I just feel like when it comes down to a game like the Browns or a game like the Chiefs, like he does need another receiver option that is like gonna come down with the ball.
Got you. I get you. Barbershop Sports Talk Podcast says, what's good, fam? Carita, what's the chances we trade for Max Crosby? I'd be Gucci if they made that move. Y'all want everybody. Y'all worse than.
I think very slim. I mean, they need someone like Max Crosby.
That's like an old way, man. You know what I'm saying?
But they don't have the money for Max Crosby. But I love the big thinking.
Oh man, it's crazy. Oh, let's get to talk about the Ravens game. I mean the Browns game. That was a tough game. Obviously, I saw you and DH talked about it, but the Ravens lost to the Browns, who were 1-6 at the time. Do you feel like, first off, what went wrong in that game for you and your thought process? What went wrong for the Ravens?
So I don't want to forget this, but I think that offensively, let's start with the offense. They need to start fast, right? They moved the ball down the field. I'm still on the fence of if I like the call to go for it on 4th down in that situation. I understand why he probably wanted to be aggressive, and you're on the road. It's a divisional opponent. So I get the thought process, but it just didn't feel like it was necessary to go for it on 4th down. They didn't convert. And so they ended up not getting any points. And then I believe the Browns, I don't think they scored a touchdown, but they at least got a field goal. So, I mean, the Ravens kind of started off playing a little bit from behind. And then Derrick Henry, I mean, hey, you got to give the Browns credit. They did a good job stopping Derrick Henry. I think he only had 11 rushes.
Yeah, that's what I actually.
11 rushes.
You're right. No, you're right.
For 70 something yards, 73 yards. I like to be on point with my numbers because people like to correct everything. So Derrick Henry really didn't get going. And we've talked about this in the games that the Ravens have won. Derrick Henry's had at least 20 plus rushes.
Oh, yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the receivers. I mean, I just don't feel like the offense was clicking the way they have been clicking the past few weeks. That's kind of all how I can sum it up. They just didn't seem to be on the same page against the Browns. So that was how I feel about the offensive side of the ball. And then the defense. The defense has been sputtering along, if we're being honest, all season. But I feel like that Browns game really exposed the defense. First of all, they got no pressure on Jameis Winston. I have to check. I don't think they get that?
I think they had. Let me check it right now. They had one sack. They had 1.5 sacks. 2 sacks. They sacked us twice.
2 sacks. And those were probably later in the game, honestly, because I barely remember those. But Jameis Winston had all kinds of time to throw. And then just the secondary, we've seen the pass defense has been an issue all season. But the secondary was just, like I said, really exposed against the Browns. Eddie Jackson dropped, I don't know how he set interception. Ardarius Washington dropped a would-be interception. I mean, there were just so many possible interceptions that were straight up dropped. And then we saw at the end of the game, Kyle Hamilton had the game-winning interception in his hands. I'm not going to drag Kyle Hamilton only because that day he was playing he was all over the place.
He was.
And he usually don't usually make those kind of mistakes. But there is just something with the secondary that is just not working. Marcus Williams, I don't know what's going on there. He did not start, and when asked about why Marcus, he didn't start, and he also just didn't play. So when asked about Marcus Williams, Coach Harbaugh said it was basically a personnel decision, and it was an internal issue. He said an internal issue, and that's pretty much what he said. And then he was asked about it again on Monday. He repeated himself, but then he was even more. He stood 10 toes down, as the kids say, because he was he basically says, well, some things are just our business. That's what he said.
Okay.
So I don't know what's going on there. I would say it could be possible that a trade is coming, but his salary is pretty high. So they would have to find somebody who would be willing to take on his salary. But something is going on for sure.
My man Paul has a question. He says, is this game a bump in the road for the Ravens? The Browns game, I guess he's referring to.
I think so. I think
Do you
so.
really? Okay.
Wait, when you said when
you said a bump in the road, is he bad? Oh no, I think he's right. He's right. I think you say bump in the road is a minor thing, right? Minor.
That's how I took it.
Yeah, it's minor. That's how I say. That's how I'm saying it. Yeah, it's minor.
Yeah, I think it's minor, but I also think that it could. I think that game, and I'm not saying because of like the way one person played, but I think that game was kind of maybe a wake-up call that some moves need to be made. And so I think that's why we saw the wide receiver move made. I'm hoping that some move is gonna be made on defense to help that secondary out. They need pass rush help too, but I don't know if they can get all of that before the trade deadline, or if they even have the money for all of that. But they gotta try to do something about that defense, because my thing is, I feel like Lamar has one of the best offenses that he's had in a while, and I would just hate to see his chances at a Super Bowl squander because the defense is not good, and that's a very real possibility. I feel like this defense is holding the team back, and they've been able to skate by because Lamar's been able to put up points, but they only put up 24 points against the Browns, and I think we had this conversation too. And most of the games that they've won, they put up 30 or more points.
Yeah. I want to ask something you mentioned earlier about Derrick Henry only getting 11 carries. Like that, like we talked about, we always talk about this. Like, where is that fine line of showcase Lamar and his ability to throw the football, and he's doing a great job of doing it. So this is no shade to Lamar, because everybody knows that I'm a big supporter of Lamar. But also, when you get Derrick Henry, 11 carries of 73 yards, kind of tells you, like, if you gave him the ball more, you're getting that Dominic Derrick Henry type of game. So how, like, in your opinion, do you feel like they utilized Derrick Henry enough, or was the game just the game? That's just how the game played out.
I feel like I kind of feel like that's how the game played out.
Okay.
Because Derrick Henry he had some. I think a lot of those 70-something yards was later.
That big run. He had a big run too. Yeah, hit that one.
Yeah, later in the game. But for the most part, they were doing a good job of stopping Derrick Henry. So I think that is why they ended up moving away from him a bit. Because they were in these situations where it was like, they would run the ball, and then they're in a third down situation and they had to pass pretty much. So I think for the Browns, that's just how that game panned out.
All right, so JD 372 ABC said Browns won the game more. Jamin energized the Browns. You agree with that?
I don't know if I would say the Browns wanted the game more. I think the Ravens wanted the game just as much.
Okay.
But I do feel like and I said this on the pregame show, that was my concern. When you have a new quarterback, we see this all the time. When there's a bad team and there's a quarterback change or some sort, or a coaching change or something, a lot of times they go out and win that first game because they're all energized, they all hype. You know what I mean? And then they go lose the next game after that. But so I think that it was a combination of the Browns had like a new energy because they had Jameis, a new play caller, and also the voice of the Browns. You know how every team has like a voice, a radio announcer that's the voice of their team. He had actually, I got like a notice that he died.
He passed. He
passed. So I was like, oh gosh, there's a lot going on here. A lot of emotional things that can incite emotion in a team. So that was my concern. And I think it was a day where the Ravens was slipping a bit. And I don't think they were slipping because they didn't take them seriously. They just were not clicking on all cylinders.
Got you. Barbershop Sports Talk Podcast says they got too cute with the Wildcat on 4th down on the first drive. I agree with that too. Like,
yeah, and like, Harbaugh kind of admitted like that's a play that they wish they could get back. So.
Oh, okay. So he had that talking monkey then, I guess. That's how it sounds like when he says, "I want that playback." That's that talk. Ray, you want to add something? My bad, bro.
Well, no, it's all good. I mean, Carita, in the pregame, you mentioned this being a possible trap game. I don't really believe in divisional trap games personally, because divisional teams know each other so well. We've seen history with the Ravens against the Bengals, there's been last-second touchdowns, especially the Steelers. I mean, it happens. And Wole pointed out, too, before the game, the Browns are not as bad as the teams everybody thinks. They didn't have good quarterback play. That defense is still that defense. Myles Garrett is still who he is. So the Browns necessarily isn't a bad loss. The Browns played well down the stretch last season. But I will say this. There is chatter around the Ravens often that Harbaugh loses games like this. Like, that's what frustrates fans about him. Is there any thought that he could be at some point removed as head coach because it's been a while since that Super Bowl and games like this happen?
It's funny because I was kind of having this conversation with my mom because I was just talking about how the fans are like are quite frequently calling for Harbaugh's job. And she was like, really? Because, my mom's in Jacksonville, so she don't chatter from the fans. And she was like, really? And I said, yeah. Here's my take on it. It's absolutely, absolutely possible. But at the same time, I also see his relationship with the players. And I know that might seem like, who cares? But I think that kind of I do think it goes a long way. And that's why it's hard for me to see it happening anytime soon because he just seems to have such a good relationship with the players. They seem to like him. He is like a Lamar Jackson, like he is for Lamar Jackson. And I just don't know. Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm not saying it's not a move that couldn't happen, but it's a little hard for me to see right now.
Okay.
Just from that observation.
I'm glad you hear the noise too, though. I mean, this has been years now. I mean, it's been since 2016, 2017, where fans wanted removed. I remember they missed out on the playoffs on the last week of the season. The Bengals got a game-winning touchdown. I was like, oh, this is exactly why we need a new coach. But like you're also pointing out, your mom said around the league, people would love to have that stability that the Ravens have at head coach. So I think it's the result of being too successful to be real, because when you're real successful, fans gonna call for you. Look at what Belichick, went through in New England. He went from the GOAT to he's horrible. He ain't forgot how to coach. It's just it was his time that ran out. That's all. So fans can be like that. I don't agree with that. I just mentioned it because real
quick. Yeah. I see it on my when I post stuff. It's like one day everything's all good, but let them lose or somebody have a bad game and it is a wrap. They are the worst. The worst.
Good.
So I mean, we'll see, but I do think that a lot of times coaches who have good relationships with players are not, it goes a long way. And he has a way of motivating his guys, but I do understand, right, that he does have a tendency sometimes to for his decision making cannot always be what you would like it to be in certain situations.
Ooh, Paul chimed in on that. But Tomlin goes through the same thing, Paul. Tomlin goes through the same thing. I do want to
say really quick about the trap game thing.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So I felt like that more so from the fans and people who I was talking to.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to make the point, like, don't sleep on the Browns because, like you said, they're a divisional opponent. They know the Ravens very well. So that right there in itself was something that I was thinking about. And then, like I said, I was thinking about Jameis Winston, the new play caller. There was a lot of things.
And Dorsey.
And I feel like a lot of people were kind of talking about it like it was a cakewalk. And my point was, hey, like this could be that game that people are not. It's not a situation where I thought the Ravens weren't taking it seriously.
Yeah.
But it was just like people.
Yeah, I would say this, like, the problem with the Ravens, this is the truth. Like, the Ravens saw the best version of the Browns. Period. That's just what it was. Like, as much as I've always, everybody knows that. Like, I like Deshaun Watson, but he done. Not to be like, in terms of his confidence is shot, so therefore you're not getting the same Deshaun Watson. So the Ravens they actually got a team. The Ravens played a Browns team that had their defense play, their defense at the caliber that they can play because they're not on the field as much because they have an offense now that can keep them off the field. So now the Ravens played the best Browns team that anybody's played this year so far. You know what I mean? And that's the issue. And you never had an opportunity to really game plan for that team. You game plan for Deshaun Watson and the Browns, which is an easier team to game plan for because okay.
Excuses. I don't want to give any excuses.
Yeah.
But one of my other concerns was they came off Monday night game. Tuesday, they were off on Tuesday like they normally are.
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday, they had a late practice, and it was more of a like walkthrough type practice.
Got you.
Thursday, they had a regular practice, and then Friday they had another walkthrough, and all that was mostly because of managing recovery from Monday night's game. So, not to give excuses, but that's a short time period to plan for a new play caller and a new quarterback.
Agreed.
Is what I'm saying.
No, I agree with you.
Sorry, I'm laughing at.
And he said Harbaugh is like the good father that loves his children but keeps showing up their activities late. He missed the most important session of on the
That's so messed up.
Oh, that's so crazy. That's so crazy. That's messed up.
That makes me cry, man. Makes me cry. I tell you.
Nah, I think, but I do think like with Ray and you talking about Carita in terms of Harbaugh, like, I mean, I'll say this, as a Commanders fan, prior to like Dan Quinn, I would have loved to have Harbaugh. I like stability. I like winning.
But let me tell you something. I think for the fans, they also wanted Mike McDonald as their head coach.
Did they really?
Oh yeah. They were like, this is the time to move on from Harbaugh.
Jeez, he will cut though, dog.
And put in Mike McDonald. And I feel like some of the fans, like when they get upset, they still go back there like, we should have hired Mike McDonald. So I mean, that's part of it today too.
I think this is Paul. I mean, Paul's an anti-Ravens fan. I could tell. He's outsiders looking at the Ravens. They are going through an identity transition from defensive team to an offensive team. You know what? That's a good point. And that's actually a fair statement. So you think they're not like now more of an offensive team rather than a defensive team? That's a good point.
Yes. That is a very good point. I say that because
she vibing that joint, right? That's what she said. Yeah, she vibing that joint. That's what.
Yeah, because when it's put in that perspective, I also think that that's an issue with the fans too. Like, they are used to the Ravens being a defensive team. Mm-hmm. The defense has always been like the pride of the Ravens. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, like those are the guys. I was just trying to think. I mean, you hear others, but the defense like has always been a pride for the Ravens.
Terrell Suggs.
Terrell Suggs, exactly. All those guys. And you still hear about them till this day. So that is a huge shift for the Ravens to be weaker on defense and more high-powered on offense. So, I mean, and I guess back in the Flacco days, they had a pretty high-powered offense, and their defense.
It was inconsistent. It was It wasn't as
I
consistent.
don't
as like
remember.
this
I
offense.
don't remember if I'm gonna be honest.
No, I'm cute buck. It's not as consistent as this offense. Like,
I'm gonna have to lean on you with that one.
yeah, it was. He had his day. He had a run. Carita, he had a run in the playoffs where he was like in the playoffs. He had a run. But in the regular season, he was like
the Ravens.
in Florida.
They have never had that. Never had
they ain't never had this. Like,
they never had that. Nah.
They ain't never had
For
this.
sure. Okay.
And to be honest, the last Super Bowl, they got past Peyton Manning on basically a Hail Mary, you know.
Yeah,
So if that Hail Mary doesn't happen, not to say that's not legitimate, the Hail Mary is a big discussion right here these days. But I'm just saying, Peyton Manning, that was the last good year Peyton Manning had. I mean, he went on to win a Super Bowl. I guess the season after, but still, this is the best offense the Ravens have had. Lamar is probably the best quarterback they've had. Outside outside, I'm just saying Jim John's brother was pretty good in his day, but he's the best quarterback in franchise history for sure. So fans are gonna be fans. We understand it, and I like Denise's comment. I thought it was hilarious, and I'm not a Ravens fan, so again, I'm on the outside looking in, but for the team I root for, I would love to have what the Ravens have. Bottom line.
Yeah, so. I do think that's a huge part of it. Like, the fans think that this defense right now is not living up to the expectations of Ravens defenses.
True. That's
and you also have to think about last year. They were like at the top defensively. They were like at the top of several categories. And like they are upset with Zach Orr and everything.
I feel
expectations. Nothing wrong with that.
I feel bad for him. Well, Carita, before we let you go, I know you got things you gotta do, you gotta take care of. Before we let you go, how can folks catch your content, catch you on social media?
You can catch all of my Ravens content on Bowie TV. So that's at Bowie TV Sports. And then you can follow me and get even more of my Ravens content and everything else I do at Carita Parks on all social media platforms.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, y'all, before we go wrap this show up, make sure you tune into our Ravens Broncos pregame show Sunday at noon. It'll be streaming live on our YouTube, IG, and Facebook accounts. The pregame will also be streaming on the Bowie TV YouTube channel as well. But make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and other podcast platforms. Just search the Urban Sports Scene. Also follow us on X at Urban Sports Scene, IG, and TikTok at Urban Sports Scene, and also like our Urban Sports Scene Facebook page. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Also, make sure you subscribe to our Urban Sports Scene YouTube channel and the Bowie TV YouTube channel too. Hit that red subscribe button, like this video. Appreciate y'all for tuning in anyway. Y'all been listening to the Urban Sports Scene for ages. Yedig deuces. We are out.
Not bad at all. Not bad.